phone?
Cell phones turn off.
So I have the thought for the day.
Hey.
So the poet says, ever since happiness heard your name, it's been running down the street trying to find you. Which is an interesting concept, that it's trying to find us. I think that, in fact, we don't find God. I think God finds us, and we allow that to happen. I don't think happiness, we don't find happiness, it finds us. And it's finding us, and we want to be able to allow it to locate us. And that's an important thing. That somehow God's tender glance finds us, and then we can find our way to be God's tender glance in the world. It's kind of how it works. But I don't know what it is, something kind of gets in the way and from happiness finding us, and it's really our unhappiness. And I think 9 times out of 10, mainly our unhappiness is not about what we think it's about. It's about something else. So this is kind of my theory of life. Everything's about something else. So I was listening on the radio about gang violence in Chicago, and somebody says, violence causes violence. I thought, no, gang violence is about something else. So if you just focus on the gang violence, nothing happens. But it's about a lethal absence of hope. So if you can address the despair, the gang violence disappears. It's a little bit like the cough of a lung cancer patient. You can focus on the cough, and you can in fact probably calm the cough. But unless you address what it's really about, which is lung cancer, the patient's going to die. So if you address the despair in a city, then the gang violence disappears. If you address the lung cancer, well then the indicator, which is the symptom, the cough, goes away. I remember years ago I had inadvertently bumped into somebody's car and left a tiny little, little dent, a minor, about the size of a child's hand, a very small child, a newborn, thank you. And so the guy flipped out, just absolutely lost it, ranting and raving and threatening and foul language and just over the top. And there's nobody who thinks that his rage was about that car. You just know that. You know that it's about something else. So if you can find the something else, sometimes that happens here too. This may be hard to believe, but sometimes you might find yourself dissatisfied, even unhappy, and you might complain, and you might say, my supervisor came on me sideways. Or you might say, my case manager, she's not helping me for nothing. Or she's giving me the runaround. Or it's discrimination, and they're not treating me fairly, and on and on and on. And it doesn't mean that you can't have legitimate critiques, but mainly our unhappiness is always about something else. It's always about our wound, and it's about our own brokenness. And if you're a stranger to your wound, you're going to be unhappy. This is why we always say around here, if you transform your pain, you won't have to keep transmitting it. That our unhappiness is about something else. So our happiness wants to find us. And the thing that keeps us from being found is we get stuck in that place where we're a stranger to our own brokenness, maybe. Remember years ago, a lot of you knew this little kid who you kind of grew up at Homeboy from the projects, a kid we all called Pee-Wee. And 10 years old, and he just everybody at the staff at Homeboy kind of lavished affection on him, and Homeboy was more home than home, and especially since he was a kind of a bullied kid constantly. He'd call me from a payphone at Hollenbeck Junior High, and this guy took my backpack, and it click, and the bully would hang up the phone, and he threw me in the dumpster, click, and and he was always kind of besieged. And a kind of a slow poke. I remember once early Saturday morning at 6 in the morning, I drove by in front of our old office, and there he was, Pee-Pee, standing in front of the office. I pulled over and go, "What are you doing here?" "We're going to the Dodger game." I go, "Well, son, that's at 6 o'clock tonight, I want to get shotgun, he says. You know, well, you don't get damn shotgun for being here 12 hours before you're supposed to go. Well, once I was saying Mass at Dolores Mission, and it was 5 o'clock Mass, a really hot August day, and I was standing in front of the congregation preaching, and all of a sudden through the side door, there's a little 10-year-old Pee-Pee. And he just is out of body ecstatic, and he's so exhilarated. And he looks at me, and I said, Pee-Pee, I stopped preaching. Pee-Pee, what's up? And he goes, I'm finding you. And that's the sound of how our God is equally exhilarated when our God finds us. That's what it sounds like and rhymes with when happiness finds us. If we can kind of be less of a stranger to our own brokenness and allow this to kind of break through. Ever since happiness heard your name, it's been running down the street, trying to find you. So let yourself today be found.